Still not live, I think.
Coming.
Acha, okay. Oh,
Hi, good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Future Ready Talents interactive session. Today, we will spend about 90 minutes here, and we will, from the mentor side, mentor team side, we will try and help you with some of the queries that you have been posting on the discussions earlier. We will try and cover a few of the aspects, but we will allow a few more minutes for others to join. So we will start at about in about 4 minutes from now. So we will just wait. We will be on standby, and then we will get started at about 4:35. Hi, good evening, everyone. A warm welcome to the Future Ready Talents interactive session where we, the mentors, will try and help you with some of your queries, the queries that you have already posted on the GitHub discussions in the chat window today. So towards the end, we have a session where we will answer some of your queries from the chat as well. So, and apart from that, we have mentors who will continuously answer your queries on the chat right away. So please utilize this opportunity to ask any doubts that you have. And today we will primarily focus on queries around the Azure and the GitHub, etc. So most of the technical aspects that you may want to get your doubts clarified here. My name is Alok, and I will be presenting you some of these aspects today. So let me get started with the agenda first, and then we will move on to the main discussion. All right, so we have structured this session today. We will start with spending few minutes on giving you an overview on the Azure services, the type of services that are available to you. We have identified few services which are very critical for application development, etc. So we will talk about those services. While we have very limited time, we will cover only two services briefly. I will give you certain demos as well. Then we will move on to a section where we will talk about how you decide for a particular service. There are hundreds of services that are available to you on the Azure environment. So how do you choose one service over the other? Or why would you choose one particular service to achieve one capability? There can be many services which provide you overlapping functionalities or features, etc. So we will give you some aspects about how you can make a decision on choosing one service over the other. We will cover some of the Azure best practices around, say, while you're designing an application, while you would be creating your projects and you want to design your applications. These best practices would be something that you can take as a baseline or guidance for you. These best practices can be considered while you're designing your applications. And beyond that, when you say beyond the projects as well, when you want to design any application for your requirements, you would consider these best practices and implement those. One of the important phases for this virtual internship program is the project submission on GitHub. So I'm going to give you a walkthrough on how these can be uploaded to the Git repositories and how you can publish them and make them available to us. It's very important that you upload all your artifacts onto the GitHub, make them available to us, and provide us a link to see that you have uploaded an working version of the application. So I will show you how you can do that. Next, we have a team coming to us who will talk to you. These are students like you who have participated in the Imagine Cup India and the global event. So these are innovators who were the winners for India geography, and they were runners up in the global arena. So they will talk about how they went ahead, identifying, designing a project, and then presenting them at various forums. So this would give you a good insight into how you can think about a project and create an exciting project. Now, we would also want to answer most of your queries and questions that you have been asking through the GitHub discussions. So queries that you would cover or ask in today's chat session. We will select few of those queries, some of the queries which have been asked in the discussion forums earlier, or some of the queries that are coming in today's discussion. We will cover them into the Q&A section. So that's the agenda for today's close to 90 minutes session. Now let me start with the first section, where we will cover the Azure Services overview and the demo. As I said, on this topic, we will talk about some of the topics that we consider are very important for you to know, and this will give you information about the various aspects about implementing one of the services on the Azure environment. Let me start with giving you an overview of the various services that are available to you on the Azure. There are over 200 services that are available. So my slide, my screen would be not sufficient to include all of them. I have included some of the important services. When you go onto the Azure portal, you will see there are various categories of services, or services are categorized into various blocks. So you will see them into categories like AI and machine learning, analytics, compute, databases, etc. And each of these categories would consist of many services that can be used, and they might have overlapping capabilities in terms of the offerings. Now, in today's world, we have, if you look at the first two, the Azure machine learning, the AI, analytics, these are something which are extensively used across the IT projects today. Then you have DevOps, you have IoT. IoT is again very significantly used in industrial automation. When you want to keep looking at the signals coming from various devices, sensors, etc., then you use the IoT capabilities. So Azure provides you a host of these services, and if I move here, you will see you have capabilities to integrate different services. For example, when I'm running my applications on a cloud environment, I would create modular applications. Modular applications would mean that I create certain functionality, say a smaller functionality, and then I call multiple such modules to achieve a larger capability. Instead of running a very large code, I will create small modules to specifically provide me certain capabilities. So what's the advantage? These give me the advantage that my projects can be more agile. I do not have to spend a lot of time in integration testing. So if I am developing a very large application, and if I make a minor change in one of the functionalities or modules, I will have to go ahead and test the entire application so that I can ensure that everything works well. But when we talk about the modular code, we would only worry about some of the components, and as long as individual components work well, the overall applications would work well. So if I make a small change, I can only take care of testing that on a module rather than the entire application. So just to give you an example of how this has changed the whole scenario is, earlier, say we take an example of Microsoft itself. You might have heard of examples, the previous versions like Windows 2012, 2016, 2019, etc. So you will see there is a gap of 3 to 4 years between every release or every major version between them. But today, when we talk about Office 365, there are feature releases every month. So the advantage is from the IT developer side that they would only worry about testing the code that they have recently created. In terms of maintaining this code, you would use technologies like DevOps, etc. And from the end user perspective, the advantage is they would always get the latest developed applications and the features being rolled out to them quickly. They don't have to wait for months or years before these functionalities can be available to them. So on Azure, you have capabilities for maybe you want to migrate your on-premises applications. There are tools available for that. You may want to replicate your on-premises networking, where you have a huge role of virtualization and creating subnets to secure your infrastructure. So all of those capabilities are replicated onto the Azure cloud or the public cloud infrastructure as well. And in most of the capabilities that you require on an enterprise environment, which you have been using on the on-premises environment, would also be available to you on the cloud environment. It could be in a different form, but those capabilities would be available to you. And many a times, because of the new invent of the cloud environment, you will have far greater capabilities onto the cloud environment. For example, if you talk about security on the cloud environment, public clouds are considered to be the most secured IT infrastructures that have ever been built. Now, this used to go against the perception. People were very worried about moving their data and applications onto the cloud, but over a period of time, there has been a lot of sense of confidence in terms of how these environments provide you the security capabilities and provide you greater security than most of the enterprises can ever afford. So that's a quick overview on some of the important services. Maybe we may also want to talk about the storage and the database capabilities. On Azure environment, when you look at the huge size of data that's being handled on these public cloud infrastructures, There are different type of data that you handle. You will have structured, semi-structured, and unstructured data. Now, when we have designed these services on the Azure environment, there are specific services which are optimized for handling one type of the data set over the other. So while you're planning your or choosing your services, you can always look at some of these aspects on what would be the optimized way in which we can store the data. I will give you an example here. For example, if we take a hierarchy and we take an hierarchy of an organization, say. So there are individuals who report into somebody. Individuals will have their managers. They use certain applications within their organization. They will require access to the applications, etc. So this is a very, say, varied kind of a structure that you may want to store. And this is what is required on your Azure's Active Directory or your corporate Active Directory. So when you want to store such information, the relational databases like SQL or Oracle are not the optimal choices for you. So instead of that, we choose a graph kind of a database. So if we look at from the support perspective on the Azure environment, you have CosmolDB, which provides you the graph database capability. So other example could be if I want to store media files. Now, while RDBMS also supports the blob storage, but you can choose the Azure blob services, which are optimized for keeping these large binary objects. So these are the unstructured data. So similarly, you have various services which can offer you optimized services on one specific requirement for you. So while you're designing your, the cloud infrastructure, while you're designing your applications, you can keep some of these aspects into consideration and then choose a particular service. Where do you find the information about these? If you go to docs.microsoft.com, which is the parent repository of the Azure information, as this is an official Microsoft repository, you would already be accessing, most of you would already be accessing this. Now, all the information that comes to you is authentic Microsoft information coming from Microsoft itself. And this is one of the most updated repository. So Azure being a very dynamic environment, the services would keep on changing, the capabilities would keep on changing. And if you go to docs.microsoft.com, here you can look at the most updated information. So on the docs.microsoft.com/Azure, you will also find the service descriptions for the Azure services, which will give you detailed information about how these services are, what these services are offering you, what are the limits, what will be the cost, what are considerations that you should take care, what are the SLAs these services will provide you, which geographies these services are available to you, etc. So there are multiple aspects which would be available to you in these service descriptions. All right, so let's move to the second topic here, which is